Splatoon 3 as of Sizzle Season 2024 has a lot of weapons, subs, and specials, and a lot of them are just not that great, either because they're heavily underpowered or because everything in the meta counters them. We call these low tiers. Today I want to talk about 3 low tier specials and how I would buff them to make them balanced and not at the bottom of the tier list. If you enjoyed this video and want to see me do more of this for weapons and subs, subscribe and let's get into it. So starting us off is the Reefslider, which is notorious for being notoriously bad. The reason it's bad is simple. You go along a predictable path and explode, but after the explosion there's so much end lag for some reason that you can't act for a few frames. This makes it really easy to punish the user, especially because it doesn't destroy bombs, meaning you can just throw a bomb where it's going to explode and splat them immediately. Also, although you're invincible when you start moving, it's really inconsistent and sometimes you can get splattered while you're already halfway through the track. Something else to take into account is zones cheese, which is absolutely horrible sometimes. Now, I have 3 buffs, 1 rework, and 1 nerf. Starting with the buff, the first thing I'm going to do is make it so that your armor triggers just a few frames faster. This is to make sure you really are safe when you start moving and should fix inconsistencies as long as it's not too much time off. Next, I'm going to reduce the end lag by a few frames so you can act faster after exploding so it's harder to punish. I think this is reasonable because of how predictable Reefslider is. For the final buff, I'm going to make it so that it destroys bombs and splash walls when they're run over. Splashdown already does this, it's really stupid that Reefslider doesn't, and splash walls either derail the slider or make it explode early. Why has this not happened yet? Moving on to the rework, I don't want to overhaul it, but I feel like it would be sick if you could just ditch the Reefslider early. Something like a drop roll where you could press a button and you could hop off the Reefslider where the shark goes through the rest of the path. I feel like what I did is enough already, but this would be really cool. And finally, for the nerf, if Slider is decent now because of all the ways I buffed it, this next one is targeted at zones cheese. I'm going to revert the radius buff it got a while back. I have no clue why the devs did this in the first place. It addressed none of Slider's issues and just added a new one. That's it for Slider. Now moving on to Ultra Stamp. This one is also talked about for being horrific, but I think a lot of people exaggerate how bad it is. Yeah, if you have a fast firing weapon, you can just shoot the guy, but like, what if you don't have a fast firing weapon? I made a hot take about this in my Discord server, which you should join, by the way, link in the description. My point is, some weapons do struggle with killing it when it's rushing them, but the reason it's bad is because most things at the top of the meta deal with it really easily just by shooting the user from the front. So how do we fix it without making it broken? By not giving it protection to the front. This will leave almost zero counterplay, because good luck getting behind it. Instead, we can change some parameters. I have 1 nerf and 2 buffs this time around. Starting with the buffs, I'm going to make Sam swing slightly faster. If it's hitting the ground more, it will have a smaller window for the player to be hit. However, this won't affect the movement. For the second buff, I'm going to make its turn rate slightly faster. It needs to be more consistent at getting targets because of the nerf I'm about to give it. Now, if this stamp swings and turns faster now, we need to tone down its outer radius. The outer radius is actually just BS. Like, how did this even hit me type BS, and the netcode doesn't help. So I'm reducing the outer radius by a whopping 20% just to be safe. I think this addresses the main problems of Ultra Stamp well enough without just making it more of a casual crush than it is now. I don't think this is enough for it to see competitive use, but its main weakness would be addressed. Now, for the final special in this video, Wave Breaker. Wave Breaker is a really creative concept, and it got a really interesting buff that gave it more unique identity and made it slightly better. However, it's still very unimportant, so let's make it important with these next 3 buffs I'm about to give it that maybe will make it synergize better with some of the bad kits that have it. So, starting with the first buff, I'm going to increase the damage from 45 to 47. For one reason, and that's so that it combos with Zuka because shot is already picked with range blaster, so that could be a thing. And it's still a 3-shot like it should be. The next thing I'm going to do is make the waves much faster. Too fast to ignore because right now all it does is make the enemy play jump rope, which doesn't really matter, and I feel like it only really works when you're being pressured by both the wave breaker and the main weapon that's placed it. So finally, I'm going to increase its health from 400 to 550 because too many things just immediately should it. Mostly Pencil and Shot are just experts at dealing with it, even with the newly added Wellstream. Even though it's not picked in comp, still feel like it more than deserves this buff and the others. So that's how I would change this 3 specials to maybe see some more use in the future. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing so we can hit 2,000 subscribers, and have a good one.